always slightly odd talking to an audience like this. It's our own little bubble, but I shall persist. My name's Ed Bradley. I'm co-founder of Virtualstock. Virtualstock is a British technology company. We think of ourselves as a bit of a startup, but we're really not. We've been going since 2004, and we have built the company progressively over that period of time, primarily to solve practical issues that we see in the retail space. We've come from a distribution background, so we understand supply chain very well, and we have built the technology to answer specific supply chain issues that retailers face. So we have started that by doing dropship services for 6 of the top 10 retailers in the country. But then we have expanded out into wider supply chain services, and now data management services as well for retailers. So what I'd like to talk to you about today is really just to highlight the fact that the way that we see this, both within our clients and within the wider market, is that there's going to be a pivotal change within the retail sector. Now, this is obviously doesn't come as a surprise to people. This is not something that's new, but we believe that there is something other than supply chain that is needed. We believe that there is a parallel supply chain that runs along the traditional physical supply chain, that is the data supply chain. What I mean by that is, in the good old days, we had a logistical supply chain that was built around taking goods into either a distribution center or a store. And it needed very little data that went along with that. It needed the means to produce an order, and to receive an order, and to acknowledge an order, and that was pretty much it. And then the rest got sorted out when not enough goods arrived at the location, or if things went according to plan. Now the supply chain is obviously much more complex due to all of us and the complexities that we put on a retailer. So we have, without really planning it or realizing it in many cases, we want so much more from a retailer than ever before. We want the best price, we want the product right now, we want to be able to change our mind, we want to be able to be influenced by our friends and family. We want a whole host of things. Now, the difficulty is that none of these considerations were ever put in place when retailers put their systems in place initially. They have a series of legacy systems that are designed for a traditional supply chain and don't have the capacity to hold the amount of data that we need in order to fulfill these requirements. And furthermore, the rate of change is accelerating, and I'll talk a little bit about how we think that might work. And so we don't even know what the demands that are going to be put on us as retailers tomorrow will be. And so somehow we need to be able to do the heavy lifting in terms of providing the customer experience for these set of demands, but we also need to start anticipating by testing the market, analyzing the market, and staying close to innovation and become ahead of the curve in order to answer the questions that are going to be asked of us tomorrow. This is a fairly basic illustration of the different progressions of the supply chain. But if we see the single channel, which is represented by the initial slide that I had, which is the traditional supply chain, no problem with shipping things into store. We've got that handled. Then multi-channel started to evolve in the market, which is essentially e-commerce, m-commerce, social media, but they were siloed and they were not joined up. We then see the cross-channel, which is bringing some of that technology within the retail environment itself, and I'll give you some illustrations of that. But the ultimate goal, omni-channel for want of a better word, I mean there are other phrases that are emerging for this sort of aggregation, but it's to create a brand that regardless of the channel that you're purchasing your product through, is unified. So you don't differentiate the difference between buying on your mobile, having an experience online, having an experience in store or on social media. They are all interlinked in a way that just relates to that retail brand. We're quite a way off actually having that experience right now. It's there to some degree with some retailers more than others. But what we are seeing is obviously the Amazon effect now coming into physical retail, Alibaba coming into retail in a big way, and they are really pushing the envelope to ensure that this omni-channel experience happens. Another illustration of where we're seeing that is the direct-to-consumer phenomenon that's happening with brands right now. So brands have always seen the retailers as the only method of getting their product out to the market is to put it in store. So in order to market that product correctly, they put marketing funds behind the retailer to promote their products. What's happening now, of course, is the brand is seeing multiple channels that they can sell their product through. It can be a marketplace, it can be direct, it can be through retail, it can be through their own physical stores. And that is blurring the edges of what is a retailer and what is a brand and where do their roles fit in. So all of these things together are changing the landscape of the retailer. If we look at some analysis that John Lewis did of their own retail activity, it's quite interesting to see that only half of the entire activity now is purely done in the store. And most of the activity involves some degree of multi-channel. So we have at the top where the product was researched and where it was ultimately purchased. So the interesting one here is where it was researched in the store and then purchased online. And of course, that's at the moment slightly counterintuitive and something that we don't see, or we haven't been focusing on as retailers. We've been talking more about the research online and purchase in store. So you browse a universe of products that you think you would like. You then go and you want to be able to sort of touch and feel the carpet that you're going to buy or whatever it might be. So there's an in-store element to that. So the research is done online and the purchase in store. The new iteration of stores, the Amazons and the Alibabas, and a lot of the sort of the press that they're talking about now is the reverse. It's research in store and then purchase online. And we're going to show you a few illustrations about how that might be happening. But that is a growing category. So here's an example of a multi-channel moving to cross-channel. We've all seen it. You can't find something in the store. You have an opportunity to go buy something online. The other thing that is there's a real consideration for these stores, and something that historically Virtualstock has helped out with these retailers is range expansion. So if you look at Argos, for example, moving from the traditional catalog and pencil model to an online in-store catalog. That enables Argos to move from the 20,000 or so products to tenfold. Now, of course, range expansion is something that is something that retailers have aspired to because it is no longer relevant for a retailer to have 20,000 products online. They need a massively expanded assortment because it's one of the things as consumers that we demand. We want choice, we want variety, we want a multi-category consideration when we're buying online. We don't want to be confined to traditional types of product selection. And we can see this here. So if you have a traditional product catalog from a retailer, it's about 20,000 products. That's how much a retailer can actually store within a single warehouse. If you look at an extended range or an aspirational range for a retailer, it's about 200,000 products. But it comes as no surprise to us that we have the likes of Amazon. 600 million products is on Amazon.com right now, about 300 million for Amazon.co.uk. But the interesting thing here is that they're adding 1.3 million products a day. That's the data supply chain. So this is what we mean by the data supply chain. How on earth do you get 1.3 million products onto your platform as a retailer per day, or per year, or half that? I mean, it's a phenomenally difficult challenge. Now, what we find is that retailers, traditional retailers, have got these legacy systems. It's very difficult for them to cope with this volume and variety of data, and therefore there are manual workarounds that have been put in place. Those manual workarounds involve a lot of people, they involve a lot of spreadsheets, and they involve a lot of money. And they don't do the job particularly well, because how can you scale with that sort of operation? Now, of course, we can put in place applications that compensate for a few of these sort of things, but what we are encouraging retailers to do now is to actually look holistically at the entire data supply chain across the whole business and say, how do you extract that data in a meaningful way so that you have visibility right the way across your supply chain, not only for orders, but also for tracking, and also for inventory, and also for product data and induction into your platforms. And those are the considerations and the activities that we're working on at the moment with our clients. So if we look at the e-commerce giants, so we've got a lot of noise at the moment about Amazon coming into the retail market. They've obviously bought Whole Foods. They have also opened up their own Amazon Go stores, and they're doing this for a very clear reason. Online retail, for the first time since its inception, is starting to slow. So we're used to the sort of 12-15% growth figures, even 20% growth figures in the early days for e-commerce. They are starting to slow now, and so we saw a 9% growth year on year last year. Now, what we see is a very clear reaction from the online giants, which is diversifying their own go-to-market activity. So whereas traditional bricks and mortar retailers have been trying to go online and become e-commerce, m-commerce enabled, so too Amazon and Alibaba are going for bricks and mortars, and we have even seen Amazon opt to go for catalog businesses. Whereas it's a dying and declining market, it's still a viable market, and there's still margin and revenue to be made there for that retailer. Alibaba also is putting in place a lot of stores that they've invested 8 billion over the last 2 years in putting together bricks and mortar retailers, and these retail outlets are looking very, very different. So what we're seeing is a real role in RFID. So where each particular product is tracked, so as a consumer you can go into a store and you can be directed to a particular aisle, to a particular location that the product that you are looking for is located. We also see a real growing trend for augmented reality, AR, and this is where this do your research in the store and go buy online is coming in. So now you will be able to walk through the store, and because you're using the app for that particular store under your particular user credentials, there is the ability to promote products that are specific to you within that app. And so they are able to personalize your experience within the store. So not only do you know where products are, but you know what product offers there are specific to your buying profile. And you're able to then complete that order either on the app itself or even later in the store, online. So the next steps will be difficult for a traditional retailer, obviously due to the data supply chain. How do you consume that much data? How do you make sense of that much data from those many different fragmented sources? And a lot of the key issues that we see really are the volume and the speed of the data that's coming into the retailer's set of systems. Many hundreds of suppliers with many millions of products, with huge amounts of inventory adjustments on each of those products every minute. Not just seeing that data and not just having visibility of that data, we hear a lot about can I have visibility of the entire supply chain? Well, new technology is enabling that even when there is legacy systems in play. However, that's not necessarily enough. What we really need is to be able to see it, configure it, and control and manage that data, so that we can actually make informed business decisions in a meaningful way to give the customer the experience that they need. The jump between multi-channel and omni-channel for traditional retailers is going to be extremely difficult. Because no longer is it going to be enough to be able to put manual workarounds and people, throwing people at the problem. It's too big for that now. There has to be a technology that drives this. There has to be something that actually compensates for the lack of ability in the legacy systems. And the answer is that there also needs to be a very, very big change within the retailer themselves, because traditional IT departments in the retailer, their instinct is to build. Their instinct is to say, okay, well, we will do this in-house. Yet, it is the time has come now where the market will outpace that to a factor of many times, because and by the time that the IT department has built what it is that they set out to build, there simply won't be fit for purpose. And so there is a real need now for the IT department not to be a development house, but to be an architect of an eco framework and a network of best-in-class technologies that don't replace the legacy system, but complement them and speak to them and allow them to work and to take the heavy lifting for the next generation of demands. And I didn't want to plug Virtualstock mercilessly, but we are one of those technologies, obviously, but there are a large number of those technologies here. We focus a lot on the front end of our businesses. We focus a lot on making our websites and our user experience at the front end shiny and nice and rightly so. But we also need to harness the supply chain element of that, and so that we can make sure that all of the front end development doesn't go to waste by breaking at the back end. And so we have a new data supply chain requirement, and I think it is time for retailers really to try and embrace that and look for solutions for that. So, short and sweet. I hope that was informative enough. Perhaps if there's some questions, I'd be happy to take some of those.
We have the time.
Great.
1 minute, 30 seconds.
Perfect.
So, here you go. This is a common theme. How do you increase visibility when legacy systems are so archaic?
So the way that we go about that is that legacy systems are archaic and they're very, very difficult to talk to. However, they do have a method of outputting data and consuming data. And so the way that we go about that is that we have configured our platform to enable us to consume the data that is output from those systems in any format. So the key is not to try and make the legacy system change, it's to take that data in whatever way it outputs it and then make sense of it in new modern technology. Yeah. That is the only way to do it. Otherwise, you're trying to change a multiple network of legacy systems.
And that's how banks work, and obviously banks are built on legacy systems.
Yes.
And I think a really important question here, which often is overlooked, what cultural changes are needed to implement transformation?
There are a lot. There is a shift from I've said it just now, but internal IT. there is a recognition within retail that the business now, the executives within the business are a lot more tech savvy than they were in the last generation. They can make decisions on technology, and they have very good understanding about what technology is going to solve problems right now for them. Now, there is a conflict often between internal IT and the business, because the IT are working on their projects and the business comes up with a solution. The cultural change that I think that needs to happen is that the IT department and the business need to work much closer together and not be proud about who's building this solution, but to work together to find the best-in-class solution to solve the problem.
And with that, a big round of applause for Ed.
Thank you very much.
Standing room only. Thank you very much.